being self-employed still has its benefits because, you make your own schedule, you decide what you want to do, and, you're your own boss.
Yeah, I think that's definitely... Oh, it's straight. I don't think I could go back to working for anyone else now. I know that sounds really... it feels quite like big-headed or something. I don't know. But like, I think, having the freedom to sort of determine your working hours is just... Obviously, it has its downsides. Like, sometimes you have weeks where you're working ridiculous hours, and then sometimes you have weeks where you don't have much work on at all. But, once you've adjusted to that, it's kind of like, it's all good.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't... It's so weird. I don't think I'd be very good at working for someone else now.
You've lost your discipline.
Yeah, I think I really have. It's strange. I think I'd be upset if I was working a job that wasn't creative now.
Get used to what we do, I guess.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about how work happens for you. How do you find, or I guess how do your clients find you, or how do you find your clients?
Ooh, that's a good question, actually. I think most people I work with come through my website and they've found me. But I do a few different things. So I write a column for an online magazine. Whenever that column goes out, I always get some more inquiries through my website.
So cool.
So that's kind of that's cool. It kind of pushes people towards my website a little bit. And then also I do quite a lot of work for women and gender minorities in the music industry. So I run a group called 2% Rising, which is for women and gender minorities who are into production and engineering. Because, you go onto Facebook groups, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, it's just a observation way, but most people are white men and of a certain age. And, they can come across as being quite laddie, and, I've had it before where I've asked a question in one of those groups and really thought out about how to phrase my question and to really sort of ask it really politely and respectfully to the group. And then someone has just given a one-word answer with a full stop after it, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world, and it just feels very negative. And I don't think they're, if you're different than the sort of majority, they don't feel like a good place to learn, or they don't feel like a safe space to learn. They might be a good place to learn, but they don't feel safe to ask questions and explore different ideas. So me and my friend Jenny, who goes under the artist name of Rux, we set up 2% Rising, I think it was like the week before lockdown. last March. And we set it up just being like, well, we want somewhere where we can ask questions and just have a little network. And that's really grown. So I do get a few inquiries coming from there.
That's so cool. Is that like a Facebook group?
Yeah, it's a Facebook group, and so we do a weekly Zoom call, which they change in theme. So we do listening parties where people can bring a track that's, maybe they need a bit of help with the lyric, or maybe they need help with the mix, or whatever, and they can ask for advice and feedback. And that's always really positive and, a good space. We do skill shares, we do socials, we do like tech talk, we do panels. So it varies each week. So we do that. And then we've also got a partnership with Audio Media International, where we feature one of our members in their magazine once a month, just to kind of, put the spotlight on them a bit. People who aren't men exist in this industry. You get a lot of people sending tweets going, can anyone recommend an engineer who's not a man? I can't find any. And half of me thinks that's really lazy that they've not looked, but then also I think that's actually quite a valid question, because no one would describe themselves as a female engineer or a non-binary engineer. So, I feel a bit mixed about the question. But there's loads of us,
Yeah.
so it's a really nice network. And I do get quite a lot of inquiries coming through that from people who, we've just built up a good relationship with.
Yeah. I just released an episode of the podcast with a woman named Skylar Coco who produces for a lot of women, she told me. And a lot of women really want to work with other females, and I totally get that. And it's like almost like a good business plan to be a female producer producing other females, because a lot of women are looking for that,
Totally.
And there's just like a stigma that's just it's all men, and it's true. It's like a lot of men compared to women. But I think that what you're doing is good, and like shining a light on women that are doing it just helps bring awareness to the fact that there are a lot of women that are trying to do it, and there's a lot of women that want to do it. And yeah, I wish you luck in that.
Thanks. There was a really good phrase I saw, which was you can't be what you can't see, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I'd never been in a proper mastering studio until last year. And, I'd never really seen another mastering engineer. I'd seen Mendy Portnoy, who is amazing. I met her a long, long time ago. But other than her, I'd never really seen, or spoken to a mastering engineer. So I don't think that it's entirely true, but it's, it is a good saying, because I think representation does matter.
Yeah. If you see women, working in this industry, that's like enough of an, that's more, that's for someone who's like maybe thinking about it, a female who's rising up, and doesn't know that there are females doing it. Like, oh, I can do this. This is a valid,
Totally.
way to try to spend my time.
I used to spend hours reading CD credits when I was a kid. And, there was I couldn't really recognize any female names. I didn't really think anything of it, but yeah, it is a bit of a problem.
I wonder why there were never a lot of women in this industry.
I feel like that's an entire podcast episode on it. So
I don't know. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
I know, same. It's a huge
we'll have
topic.
to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's definitely. I think people are realizing it slowly, that there are women that do this, and there are women that want to do this, and I'm seeing in Facebook groups more and more women who are doing it. And I've tried to have some women on the show. It's been hard, actually. I've said this before on the podcast. Like I've reached out to women. Not all women have responded to me. I feel like men more and more likely to want to talk about themselves than women, just like on a psychological level. But also, there's just a lot more men than women, so it's like. Even if I get like a certain ratio, it's not going to be enough to I'll try to swing it in the favor of having more women than are percentage wise in the industry, but it's still not going to be. It's not going to compete yet. I mean, I hope it changes.
I can find some good ones for you.
Oh, I'm always looking, so
yeah.
I would love it. Yeah,
yeah, it's weird. Like when I started out mastering, when I was engineering, the only women I saw in the studios were vocalists. And then when I started mastering, the second project I worked on, the vocalist, or one of the vocalists, was female, and she's awesome. But all of the punk work that came in off the back of that was very, very male dominated. Whereas now I'd say it's probably a 60-40 split in favour of women making music or producing the music or mixing as well, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. So the times are changing,
Yeah, defo. It's
nice.
Yeah, it's cool. It's weird though.
Well,
it's a bit like a little club. We all kind of know each other. But that's nice. It's good. It's good to have a network around you. I think that's kind of what I really struggled with when I started working as an engineer.
Oh, yeah.
And as well, because I think the pandemic has really made it we're having this conversation now. That's amazing. We're in two different countries. We're two engineers talking. Whereas when I started engineering, all the engineers were working in a different studio, and it would be really weird. Like, you'd have a producer and an engineer. Sometimes another engineer would come in with the band, and you'd basically just be setting up for them and leaving them to it. But they'd be working, and so you wouldn't get to have a conversation with them. And so it was just really hard to meet other engineers and have conversations.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's just... it's so much more accessible. It's great.
Yeah. I think, it's interesting. We had like a bit of a dip there. I feel like back in the day, like in the 70s, 80s, even the 90s, like people were hanging out in the studios, and, that's where engineers would meet each other and talk shop. And there was like a very in-person community thing happening. And then we kind of had this thing where everyone kind of rushed into the home studios, and then everyone kind of lives in their bunker and doesn't see anybody else and doesn't know that other people are doing this. And I had a moment I went to an AES in 2017. I was in New York. I was like, oh, these are people that do what I do. And it like was a really big moment. It was really like a big moment of understanding for me that like I need to connect with other people that do this, because otherwise I'll have no idea of if I'm doing anything good or right, or, like we need to bounce ideas off of each other. And there's no way to do it if you're just in a home studio, not really connecting with other people. And yeah, maybe you're right. Like maybe this pandemic is ushering in a new wave of connectivity through the internet, of where, people can actually connect and like are comfortable connecting now over the internet. And I like just on a personal level, just like starting this podcast has been that for me, like getting to meet other people that do what we do. Just by interviewing them has been that's been the best part of podcasting. And that's not what I thought when I went into this. Like I was like, okay, I need to put out some good content. I need to like get myself out there. But it's like, no, I'm like meeting amazing people. And that's by far the best part about doing a podcast,
That's really interesting. See, I'd have never thought of doing a podcast for content. Maybe I'm selfish, but I think I've always like, the thought's been there for a while, but honestly, I just don't have time to do it. But my kind of selfish reason has always been like, oh, I could speak to someone whose record I really like and ask them loads of really nerdy questions about it.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, like, content is a really good reason to do a podcast.
Well, they're both good reasons. I learn a ton from the guests on the show. And I don't know, I guess at the beginning I was asking very specific questions where I was kind of like, okay, how did you do this? And, like, how do you, when you're doing a mix, like what's the first thing you pull up, or, very specific question. I just got bored of those questions after a while. Cause like when you ask that same question to enough people, you kind of see a pattern of what the answers are going to be. And so it just becomes more about like, I don't know, digging deeper into other things as well,
I think like podcasting is definitely its own art. I've been on a few podcasts now, and I think interviewing someone and, having a really good conversation, that's an art. I'm sure of it. Like, especially with other engineers who tend to be awkward and nerdy like myself. I don't know. I guess it's something you probably learn on the way, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would tell you it took me a year to get decent at it. I would say, yeah, you have to put in, it's like anything. It's like mastering, right? You have to put in the hours. You have to put in the work. Like, I don't know.
For sure.
At the beginning, it was hard for me to like, balance, let's say, the questions with the conversations. And now it's like, okay, I have the questions here when I need to use them, but I'm like actively engaging in the conversation. And, I don't know, you just kind of learn how to do that. Or, everybody's a different interviewer and different style and whatever. But it took, I would say, like my first 40 episodes were probably like, learning how to do it.
Because it's totally different from having a conversation in real life. Like if we were in the pub, we'd probably be talking about much different things than what we are now.
Right, because we know people are listening to this.
Yeah. I think at the start I was really like, I don't know, obviously people won't hear this, but we had a great chat before we started recording. And then as soon as, we'd clicked record, we'd done the clap, I was like, oh,